Hello and welcome to the Apprehensively Vulnerable podcast. I think I tried to make the intro sound a little bit too sultry. Like, this is not 92.3 WHUR. I'm a clown. Like, I'm really a clown, IRL. But today we're talking about therapy, which is just so fitting because I just got out of therapy and I haven't gone to therapy since July, maybe? No, June? Probably June. Yep, I think it was June, and it's now August 1st, so it's been a while. And my therapist wants me to come every 2 weeks, so imagine not coming for 6 weeks and what that could. I'm emotionally stopped up just a little bit. But you know what? One of the reasons why I created my podcast was because I am the type of person that talking about things is really healing, and I don't want to talk somebody's head off because honestly it could take me 20 times talking about a certain situation before I'm finally like in the acceptance phase, and I don't want to talk anybody's head off talking about something 20 times, and I also don't want to use insurance money to talk to my therapist about something 20 times. So we like free. We like free, and I like having the ability to also inspire or possibly inspire others through conversations. So I've been enjoying my podcast. I feel like I'm trying to work on not confining myself to limits, and I'm a very organized, like, I don't want to say type A, but I guess that's one of the only words I could use to describe like my personality. But I'm a planner and I like everything to be a certain kind of way. And so for my podcast, I haven't done any scripting. I haven't done any type of organizational tools other than coming up with the topics. And I feel like my podcast is one area of my life where I'm not confined and I'm not trying to do things in a structured manner. So I'm getting a little bit more creativity out of it than I would, let's say, it was like schoolwork. Obviously, you can't be that creative with schoolwork, but I think you kind of get where I'm going with it. So yeah, so we're talking about therapy, and we're going to be talking about my experience in therapy, why I like therapy, why I don't like therapy, everything involved with therapy. So oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. Me not confining myself to the limits of being structured and organized assisted me making an hour and a half long episode last week. So those are some of the benefits of me not trying to script my content and say, okay, point 1 is going to be this, and point 2 is going to be this, point 3 is going to be this, and then we're going to go into this segment and that segment, and then we're going to close it out. Because I feel like if I had more of a structure, I would be limiting myself a little bit. So it is something that's very difficult for me, like not knowing what's going to happen next. But I talked for an hour and a half. Obviously, it was a topic that I'm still going through, like that whole roommate situation. I'm still going through setting boundaries. So I'm not in hindsight. It's not hindsight yet. I'm like still in the thick of going through processing all of the emotions surrounding the situation. So I think I'm just going to obviously have more to talk about. but therapy. So honestly, the first memory of therapy that I can remember was when I would go to a joint therapy session with my mom back when we lived. Do we live? No, we still lived in the DMV area. I don't know why I thought this was like back when we lived in Georgia, because it definitely was not. But my mom and I would go to therapy. And I think we only went for about 2 or 3, maybe even 4 sessions max. But I did not like therapy because when I am very passionate and emotional about a topic, I start crying. I don't really talk about zodiac signs I don't talk about zodiac signs, but I am a Scorpio moon. And if you don't know anything about water signs, the stereotype, but also the reality of it is a water sign, tears, you get the memo. So your moon sign is connected to your emotions, and a lot of times people aren't really aware of how things affect me, because I'm not going to say it's because I am a Taurus sun and a Capricorn rising, but I would say those aspects of my chart do kind of reflect, like, I think I give Capricorn, honestly. Like, if you had to guess what sign is Christian, like, I could definitely see somebody saying Capricorn. And I think I do give that. But anyway, Scorpio moon, I just be crying. Honestly, I cry when I'm angry. I cry when I'm frustrated. And every time we go to therapy, I felt like I couldn't really express what I wanted to say because I'll just start crying. And then most of the session is me like trying to get myself together from the emotional outburst that just happened and wiping my tears. And now, when after you cry, you have that lump in your throat, like that's what was going on with me. So I did not like it. And I liked being able to talk about my feelings, but I just didn't know, like, they always try to advertise therapy as a safe space, as like, oh, you can say anything, nothing's gonna be used against you. But like, human nature, like, let's be honest here. If you say something to hurt, not to hurt another person, but if you say something that is hurtful to another person and they receive it in a way that changes it changes the way that they see you, can you walk away from the session and truly and honestly say that that person is not going to treat you differently? Because humans are not computers. Computers can't be biased. Humans can. So even when we would go in the sessions and the lady would be like, you can just talk about your feelings and tell your mom how you feel, like, I kind of still felt like I had to walk on eggshells because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And like, I have a vulnerability wound, and that wound is still kind of, it's not still kind of open. It is open. It is open. And when I put that hand sanitizer on it, it be burning. Like, that wound is still fresh. So yeah, that's how I kind of felt about therapy. Like, I liked it, but I also didn't like it because I would just cry every time, and it was a little bit unproductive because I wasn't really fully expressing myself. So that's how I felt about my first encounter with therapy. My second therapy encounter, I still didn't want to go because I have expressed in the past that therapy is not effective when you only go when you're in crisis mode. That's absolutely the wrong way to go about it. Therapy is most effective when you are continuously attending your sessions until the therapist and you, I'm not going to say just the therapist, because sometimes the therapist can feel like, okay, like you're good to go. We can reduce your sessions, but you could feel like, no, I don't want that yet. But when you and your therapist come to the conclusion that, okay, it's time to reduce your sessions, like at first you were going every week, and then you're going every 2 weeks, and then once a month. Like most of the time, at least what my therapist expressed to me was that the people that she used to see on a really frequent basis, she only sees them like once every 2 to 3 months. So in terms of therapy, I never wanted to go to therapy when I'm in crisis mode. And I feel like a lot of the times when it's been offered, that's exactly what was going on. And so my idea was, yeah, I ain't going. I am not going because I feel like it's going to be unproductive. Nobody's going to listen to me, and it's going to be a waste of time because it's performative and nobody actually wants to change. They just want to say, I go to therapy. Because let's be honest, like a lot of mainstream television shows and movies are talking about mental health and or going to therapy, and it's getting more popularized. It's less taboo, and so I think it's kind of the thing to do now. Like if you have insurance and it covers it, or it like covers a large portion of it, like the thing to do is like, oh, self-care, mental health, therapy. I do this for myself. I do that for myself. And I'm going to keep using this word, but it's like performative. It's like you're putting on an act because you want to seem in the loop. You want to seem like you're actually doing something when you're not. So that was my feelings toward it. I don't want to go when I feel like people are just going for show and they don't want to actually get to the root of whatever issues or conflict that's going on. So oh my goodness. So we started doing some family sessions, and first we had individual sessions with the therapist, and then we all came together and had family sessions after. And I still am kind of trying to process how I felt about family sessions, because sometimes you need to have individual sessions outside of the family sessions, because 1 hour once a week or 1 hour every 2 weeks is not going to help you personally get to the root of your trauma, along with addressing the family trauma. So I kind of was just like, hey, I just agreed to be here so that I'm not looked at as the difficult person. Because unfortunately, being a young Black woman, I can't just not want to do something just because I don't want to do something. Like a lot of people generally do not care about the boundaries that I put in place for myself. And I don't think that I should have to come up with a reason why I don't want to do something. But being that I was in a difficult situation, I didn't want to be seen as a difficult person. And if anything, I wanted to be a part of the solution. I decided, hey, I may not participate, I may not give my 100% effort, but I'm going to at least show up. And I feel like that's saying something. I'm taking time out of my day to get on here, and even though I don't know what's going to happen or what's going to come out of the session, all I can say is I showed up. So we went to the sessions. I'm not entirely sure how long, maybe a few months, but I think the positives of the situation would be that I think my parents are more receptive than they were in the past to our opinions as their children. So I don't want to get too much into that because I am Christian Mychal. This is the Apprehensively Vulnerable podcast. My family members did not sign up to be on my social media platforms, so I don't want to get into their business. I more so wanted that part of the episode to be more like a summary, a reflection, and a little bit of context so that we can get to my full experience with individual sessions. So, like I said, I'm not going to put my family on blast because they did not sign up for their business to be on the internet, but there is a little bit of background. So while we were doing the family sessions, my therapist approached me on the side and was just like, Christian, you need individual sessions. Well, she didn't say need. She said, I would highly recommend. She recommended that, it didn't have to be her, but she would recommend that I see somebody for myself. Because like I said, like 1 hour to every 2 weeks, having 1 hour is not going to do much if you're going to family sessions versus individual. So I decided that the therapist that we were using for the family was just going to be great for me because I completely forgot about my therapy experience in college. But what I was going to say was I don't like the whole process of a person getting to know me. It feels very invasive, and I did not want to go through the process and the drama of me getting a new therapist. So that's why I ultimately decided to go with the family therapist as my individual therapist. But sidebar, we can go ahead and go into my college therapy experience. So I went into the counseling service center, and I just kind of wanted to go to a couple of sessions to see if I had any immediate concerns or issues that I was unaware of, because I want to be a mother someday, and a lot of people find a lot of passion and inspiration and fulfillment through their careers and through their jobs. And for me, being a mother is something that I always saw for myself. And generational curses are a really big thing, especially in the Black community. And I feel like it's essential that I start addressing my trauma while I'm still young, so that by the time I am planning my family, I am aware of and I can prevent some of the generational things that happen throughout my family from occurring. So I just went basically to see if I had any issues, and I found out that I did. So I had about 3, maybe 4 sessions. Yeah, I think I had about 3 or 4 sessions. And the first session was okay. I believe the sessions were recorded. But the first session was intake, getting to know me, And the second, third, and fourth sessions was basically, here's the thing. I think I've already talked about this in one of my I talked about this in one of my YouTube videos. And I am very intelligent. Let's be honest here. I am very intelligent. I'm very smart. And a lot of people, I guess before my current therapist, could take my intelligence and form in their brain that because I am so smart, I don't know, I can just dig myself out of holes that I get into by myself eventually, or just by talking through it. And so what would happen was I would go in to my sessions with the campus therapist, and then I'd be expressing my issues, but then by the end of the session, I would come to my own conclusion without her help. So around the fourth session, she was like, well, it seems like you are good. She was like, it seems like you're good, and if you want to talk, we can just schedule a time and you can come in my office, but as of today, you don't need any more sessions. And I was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm fixed. And so and this is the importance of having a therapist that understands the nuances of your background. I'm not saying that if you're Black, you need a Black therapist. If you're Asian, you need an Asian therapist. But I think culturally there was a disconnect because my therapist was Asian, I believe, or half Asian. And me being Black, I guess. I don't really use the term Black. I use African descent, but I'm not trying to get all hoteppy. But me being Black and her being Asian, like, there's certain things that maybe being an Asian person you wouldn't really understand. And so what I found out was that, in fact, there was a lot of generational stuff that my Black therapist revealed to me. Not anything major, but it's some things that were being overlooked, I guess you could say, or maybe even my therapist was overworked and underpaid, because I can't imagine like how many students you get assigned as a therapist on a campus with over 40,000 students. Like, she probably was just overworked and was like, listen, child, you don't have any immediate issues, so I'm just gonna have to cut you loose and deal with people that have a lot more going on than you. So after my therapist recommended individual sessions, shortly, oh, by the way, I did eventually want to come back to the campus therapist, and when I called the office to make an appointment, they let me know that she left her position. And so at that point, I was like, okay, if she left, I am not doing therapy at all, because like I already expressed, I hate the whole getting to know you. Like, it's so uncomfortable, Nickelodeon slime, disgusting. So I don't like the getting to know you process. And once I found out that my therapist was gone, I was like, okay, I'm cool off that. I'll just have to figure out my situation on my own. So fast forward, we had family sessions. Then my therapist recommends that I do individual. Then I basically got transferred to being an individual client. So individual therapy, what is my review? So I think individual therapy has more pros than cons, but a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to uncover things about yourself that you had no knowledge of, and to sit in the discomfort of those feelings. It's so gross. Like, we had one session where I was basically trying to explain to my therapist that I don't bother people. People bother me. Like, I really don't bother people. I try to stay out of the way a lot. I stick to myself. Like, I'm very soft-spoken. I don't do too much. And so I was trying to express to my therapist that people bother me. I do not bother them. And she was attempting to hold up a mirror to myself to show me, like, Christian, everybody has some hypocritical things that they do. Like, if you say, you don't like when people do XYZ, but then there have been instances where you have done XYZ, and I was trying to explain to her, like, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same. And so I feel like sometimes with therapy, it can be frustrating because we only have an hour. And because we only have an hour, I have to, like, pick and choose which topics I'm going to go into depth with and which topics I'm probably not going to get to address. And because sometimes I feel like my therapist doesn't get the 100% full story of every situation, she can't properly help me through my feelings. And so that can be one of the downsides, because I mean, in all honesty, if you have the insurance money to do it, you could go more frequently so that you could get into depth. And to be honest, I feel like my therapist, she does know what she's doing. So I'm sure even if I did have the time and the space to go into depth with each and every situation, I feel like she'd probably give me the same or similar answers, because she's really good about not really paying attention to the petty details, and she's good at getting to the root of the problem. So that could be a thing sometimes, because I feel like she doesn't know, like, when I tell my stories, like, I can be a little bit long-winded when I tell stories, but it's because I want you to get the full story, 100% of the context and everything, so that you can make a sound decision. I was about to say about whose side you're going to be on, but no, it's not about sides. But yes, therapy can be very difficult because you have to do a lot of emotional work that I feel like a lot of people may not be ready for. And I do a lot of crying. I haven't been crying in my sessions lately, but sometimes it's like embarrassing because I can feel the lump in my throat. And I can tell that I'm about to cry. And oh my goodness, I really hate the question, and how does that make you feel? Because every time a person asks me, and how does that make you feel, I'm going to start crying. Because there's like a lot of suppressed emotions there. There's just a lot. But I didn't title this episode what I really wanted to title it. I think I'm going to title it like Therapy is Not Fun, or Therapy is Not for the Weak. Probably something like that. But I wanted to talk about my mental health diagnosis. And I wasn't going to title this episode like I got diagnosed with anxiety or my mental health diagnosis, because I am a believer of some people just watch to be nosy. Some people and because, this episode I do stream my podcast episodes to my YouTube channel. And I feel like some people are just watching you to be messy and to be involved with your life. So the people that made it to the 30-minute mark, y'all are going to know what's really going on with me. And the people that didn't click on this episode because it didn't have a catchy, flashy, bold title, like, they're not here for a reason. Because I'm not trying to be messy and I'm not trying to, get clicks and views. Like, my podcast is really for people that want to listen. So this is the part that was very difficult in my therapy journey. So everybody knows, well, not everybody, but if you've been keeping up with my YouTube channel, you've probably heard me discuss my roommate situation. And I had been coming to my therapist expressing everything that was going on and how my brain is functioning during this time of high stress in my living situation. And so after multiple sessions discussing my living situation, it was just a random day, and I checked my email. And when I checked my email, it said that my therapist had a new document for me to sign in my portal. So I click on it. I'm like, this is strange. What is this? So I click on the email, and it takes me to the portal where the document says, Christian, you have been diagnosed. See, I can't even get it out. That's how much my pride don't want to talk about it. But I opened it up, and it said, Christian, you have been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. And it shocked me because a lot of people express how they are very excited that there's all of these labels out here that help them identify with who they are. But for me, in this situation, the label kind of felt like not really a death sentence, but like a life curse. It kind of felt like a life curse. Like, I had been going about my life for 20 years at this point. This was March. Yeah, this was March. So I have been going about my life for 20 years knowing that I do have these negative thoughts that I deal with, and I am a chronic worrier. And I was okay with knowing that I was a chronic worrier, and I was okay knowing that I had a lot of negative thoughts, and I know that my brain processes things differently than, I guess you would say, a person that doesn't have anxiety. But it was just the label. I really find offense. I take offense to the word disorder, because the way that I look at it, I would say a lot of people so in the mental health field, there are certain things that need to be present for you to receive a diagnosis. So let's say there's 5 checkpoints that you need to be labeled as a person that has anxiety. So let's say a woman has 4 out of 5 on the checklist. They don't have the credentials technically to be diagnosed, but they're still walking around with 4 out of 5. So I don't really like the word disorder, because it makes it seem like the people that don't or aren't able to get the label slapped on them are kind of being praised for the normalcy because they don't have the label. And I don't really have all of the words to really articulate myself how I would like to, because it's something I still haven't really thoroughly discussed out loud. But yeah, I was very, very, very sad about the diagnosis. And I laid in my bed for a couple of hours. And then I was like, okay, you need to get out of this funk, because at this point, maybe you knowing that you are officially diagnosed with anxiety, maybe we can do some things to actually help. And all of these things that you have been dealing with are not just, they're like not normal. But normal is a weird word, because normal is, it just depends on who you're talking to. Some people think it's normal to have 5 wives. We'll just leave it at that. But another reason why I was kind of like disappointed at my therapist diagnosing me was that I thought it was crazy that it took this situation with my roommate for me to get the diagnosis. I'm not really sure like what her notes were looking like on me, or like if she had things that she took note of in the past and she was like gathering up all of this information, and then maybe the roommate situation was the icing on the cake. I'm not too sure how that worked, but I was kind of unsure about how the diagnosis process works, being that I have been dealing with everything that I've been dealing with since I've been alive. And it was crazy to me that it took, like, I was just wondering, like, had I not had this conflict in my living situation, would I ever have been diagnosed? Or was it my living situation that showed my therapist, like, whoa, there's something more going on? So yeah, there was that. And then lastly, if you're on social media, like, I just feel like anxiety and depression are overused terms. And a lot of people that are feeling anxious in a moment have labeled themselves or diagnosed themselves with anxiety. Now, I have mixed feelings about this, because some people that are self-diagnosing themselves, they actually have anxiety. They just do not have the insurance or the money to go to a therapist to have continuous sessions and then get the official diagnosis. Then we have the other group of people that they're having a moment of feeling anxious, or they're having a moment of feeling depressed, and they take those moments and then they label themselves as having whatever. And so that's the problem, because I feel like anxiety is a buzzword, and I think it's kind of watered down, kind of like the word narcissist. I feel like when you use that term, it's just so widely accepted, and it takes away the seriousness of the diagnosis from the people that are truly living with anxiety on a daily basis. So it's really frustrating to see people that are in a moment of, let's say you felt anxious for 10 minutes and they're like, yeah, my anxiety. And it's just like, no, it's not your anxiety. You were feeling anxious. Or they're like, oh yeah, I'm depressed. And it's like, you were feeling depressed for a week or 2 weeks. I'm not trying to be dismissive of anybody's experience, but I think it's really important that if you don't fully know that your symptoms are aligned with a quote-unquote disorder, like I said, I really don't like the word, but if your symptoms are not aligning with your disorder, I'm pretty sure like they, in the mental health field, they have like a certain, like a time span for you to experience it, for you to be labeling yourself. So like if you have anxiety, they probably say you have to have about 3 to 6 months of ongoing persistent symptoms. Let's say that's what it is. So let's say a person has been experiencing the symptoms for like 3 days and they're like, my anxiety. So that's the problem why I was like, I kind of feel like this is one of the things that I feel like a lot of people are going to look at and be like, oh, you have anxiety? Like, oh, everybody has that. And it's like, no, like, I actually have. But yeah, general anxiety disorder, it's interesting because I've tried to do a little bit of research on it, and I don't think, because it's general, like, they're lumping a lot of people that are dealing with anxiety into a big, I don't even know what to call it. They're lumping us all in a group. And so everybody in the group is dealing with things that can't be, diagnosed as other disorders. Hate the word. I don't know what other word to use it, but they can't be labeled as other disorders, but they know you have anxiety, so they just say general anxiety disorder. So, yes, so imagine just going to therapy, and the reason that you start going is because you don't think anything is wrong with you, but you just go just to see because, self-improvement. And then eventually, after a little bit of trial and error with therapists and sessions, you find out that you have a mental health disorder. Shocking, right? Especially finding that out at 20. I feel like I am young, but I feel like it would have helped me earlier in life if I knew that I was normal, or like, not normal, because I can't even, like, I don't know what word to use, but just like, what's going on with me is, it's not really me. It's that negative side of the brain doing funny business. So that's the difficult part that a lot of people don't want to talk about with therapy. Like, it's not some fun thing to do. It's not something that is glorified and, you just post about it like, yeah, I love my therapy, I love my therapist, it's great, it's beautiful, it's flowers and daisies. Every session I leave feeling like a weight has been lifted off my shoulder. No, that's not what it is. At least that's not my experience. Like, some sessions, I make sure that I don't have anything to do after my sessions, because I know I'm having an issue with my S's and my braces. Some sessions are going to be difficult to deal with after, and you're going to need some time to process, because most of the time, I have a vulnerability wound, so a lot of the topics that I'm discussing with my therapist, I don't talk to anybody else about. And so even the act of expressing things that you don't talk to anybody about can be draining. And uncovering all of these uncomfortable things about yourself, it's really a part-time job. Because then outside of the therapy session, you're thinking and you're processing and you're living life so that you can come back to the next session and have more context and more real life examples to use. So I told my therapist that the diagnosis made me really sad, and she was like, wow, well, thank you for letting me know, because I told her I needed a trigger warning. I needed a trigger warning, because I was just checking my email like, okay, cool, whatever, she needed me to sign this document. And then when I saw that, I'm like, what? So I was like, yeah, I needed a trigger warning, because I just was not ready for that. It was kind of earth-shattering. So she was like, thank you for sharing. I'm not too sure how many of my other clients have expressed this level of discomfort receiving a diagnosis unexpectedly, and they didn't express that to me. So, thank you for letting me know. So, yeah. So ever since March, it's now August 1st. So ever since March, I've just been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to podcasts on anxiety and overthinking, and I don't think I would get on pharmaceuticals. I don't think that life is for me. I'm more so about, I'm a naturalist and I'm an herbalist, and I'm going to do everything in my power without pharmaceuticals. And I don't think you have to have a certain type of like, oh, my anxiety is extreme, so or my anxiety is not that extreme, so I don't think it's that situation of like how extreme it is relates to whether or not you need medication. But I feel like I can do the work that I need to do without the drugs. So if I can't, and it comes to a moment in life where I'm like, okay, I'll try it out, then I'll try it out. But I was talking to my therapist about it today, and she said that she doesn't believe in like being on that type of medication until you die. For my specific situation was what she said. She doesn't believe in long-term pharmaceutical use for people like me. It's more so like I have a lot going on, so I'm going to take these pills to assist me in my healing journey, and then once I feel like I've gotten to a place where I can start to wean myself off, I will do so. But yeah, I feel like everything that's in my head, it can be worked out. I just have to get to the root of those negative thoughts, and I'm in the process of like retraining. Like I have to treat myself, and that's the difficult part of it. I have to treat myself like a toddler, like a little baby. Like, this is new information. I just found out in March that I'm being diagnosed with this quote unquote disorder, and now I have to unlearn a lot of the things that I've been allowing myself to think for the past 20 years. Like, I don't know what was happening when I was in my mother's womb. Like, I don't know. Maybe there was some programming going on. I have no idea. I don't remember, but I am now in the process of just figuring out who I am, figuring out what anxiety or what this diagnosis means for me. I definitely think there are more pros than cons to receiving a diagnosis. I still don't like the label of it. I still don't like the word disorder. I really hate it. But if anything, it is helping me to self-reflect and to try to prevent some of the negative thoughts and all of the drama, all of the chaos that comes along with this diagnosis. So, like I said, if you're finding out this information, it is because you are really listening to the podcast. Oh, yay, I have some loyal listeners. I'm very appreciative and very grateful, and I didn't want this episode to be like, oh, messy, let me tell everybody my tea, look at the messy title. Like, that's not what this is. So I'm hoping that the people that were supposed to get the message get the message. And I am very thankful for the people that are listening. So if you do enjoy the Apprehensively Vulnerable podcast, please remember to like. I believe you can like episodes on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can also rate this podcast and give me a little comment about how you're feeling about it. If you're listening on my YouTube channel, you are welcome to leave a comment. Any topic that you would like to discuss that I brought up in this episode, feel free to let me know how you felt about it in the comments. And I am so grateful that you took time out of your day to listen to me talk. So, thank you for listening, and you will hear me in the next episode.